Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Big 12 predictions for 2026. Man, I really just I've recorded this video probably like 5 times. I've recorded the NFL one like 5 times. I've recorded the Big Ten one, and I just haven't been locked. I haven't been locked in, and TBH, like I didn't remember if I had any like phone calls or pauses in the middle of my last one. I didn't really want to sit there for 35 minutes. On top of that, I was kind of just like being dumb in the Big 12 video. So the only video I currently actually have done right now, or like that I made, is the SEC one. But I wanted to post the Big 12 one first because I feel like that's the one that makes the most sense. Because in the other videos, some of them are already predicted, and that wouldn't make sense. So I made the SEC one technically before I made this one, but we'll get onto it. And I'll even try to remember my predictions for the most part. I completely reset it because on top of that, I didn't save it. So all the SEC got completely reset. What if I did something crazy? What if I just did it all? What if I just did it all right now? One giant video. Nah, I'll separate it. That would be the longest video of all time. We're just gonna do the Big 12. It would be easier for me to do it, but I'm not gonna make everybody suffer for 3 hours. On top of that, it would probably suck for me to be here for 3 hours talking about all the conferences. I also plan on doing the Pac 12. But without saying too much, let's just get into the Big 12. I'm going to try and do this one fast. There's some talking points I want to go through. We'll go through them. There's a lot of spots that don't need talking. So why don't I go ahead and start off? I like to start off with the good teams, or the teams that I expect to be good, but then that kind of just fizzles out the smaller teams. I think it's better if I start with the smaller teams and make my way to the better teams because it makes me like actually evaluate my options rather than just automatically hitting everybody with losses. So why don't I start with somebody like West Virginia? So West Virginia gets 2 home games to open the year. Coastal Carolina could actually play a little competitively, but I'll give them the wins there. And Virginia, fell just short of a college football playoff spot, legit, because they lost to Duke. Somehow they lost to Duke, and that just kind of blew up their season. And I don't think they're necessarily a terrible team. It is at West Virginia, but I'm going to give West Virginia the win here in their home stadium. I'm going to give them an early upset win over Virginia. I just don't think it's telling of Virginia's season. I just think it's an early upset and we don't realize it yet. Oklahoma State at West Virginia. Oklahoma State is bringing in all that North Texas talent into their program, as well as the head coach. And they have. It's going to be a couple seasons before they're better, but they're going to have an offense. And I do think that Oklahoma State's offense could potentially rout West Virginia. I think they're going to be a bit of a shocker in terms of the quickness of a turnaround for the program. I'm going to give Oklahoma State the win on the road against West Virginia before West Virginia bounces back with a road win against Iowa State. Remember, Iowa State is not going to be nearly as good as they have been in the past 3 seasons unless their head coach worked a freaking miracle. Iowa State lost their head coach to Penn State and pretty much the entire team to where the point of the team decided they can't do a bowl game because there just isn't even enough players. It was so bad that a lot of teams did opt out of bowl games regardless, but they especially, it felt needed. West Virginia hosting U of A. I'm pretty sure the head coach of West Virginia right now used to coach at U of A, and I do think West Virginia is improving off of last season. They weren't very good last season. They had a couple highs and some really bad lows. Like they beat Houston on the road, who Houston wasn't a bad team at all. And then they lost like 50-0 against Texas Tech. So there was highs and there was lows. But U of A, Noah Fafita is not my favorite quarterback, but I won't for 1 second say he's bad. Sometimes I might say he's bad because I'm an ASU fan, but I won't for a second say he's a bad quarterback. He's definitely special. but I wouldn't say he's like the elite level that he gets all the credit for. That's just kind of confusing to me. But he's definitely a good quarterback, and they are returning a crap ton of production at U of A, one of the teams with more production returning, and they already had a very winning team last season. I don't think they finished in the top 25, but they very well could have. I'll give U of A the win on the road. I don't think any of these days are like the times are properly set. Plus, they're not on Friday, so ignore that. They're all on Saturday. West Virginia, though, I'll give them the win over Cincinnati. So they're actually off to a pretty decent start. I mean, compared to what the past couple seasons have been, 5-2 is not a bad start by any means. But then it just gets ugly. The schedule gets really hard. They have to play at TCU, who I think could be a pretty dang good team this year, at Texas Tech. Texas Tech checks every box except for quarterback, which Will Hammond at this point in the year will most likely be back and fully healthy, which would fix a quarterback problem. But let alone, I don't even see West Virginia being able to beat them without the quarterback. They might just lose 9-0 off of field goals or something. Kansas, I'll give West Virginia the win over Kansas in their home stadium. Houston, Utah on the road for Houston, at home for Utah. West Virginia goes 6-6. It's an improvement off of last season. There's definitely a lot to look forward to, and things are maybe looking better for West Virginia than they have been the past couple seasons. Bada bing, bada boom. I think the Mountaineers are going to be a little bit better. Let's do like UCF next. UCF, I don't think will be very good. So we'll give UCF the win over this team. And then on the road against Pitt, I'll give Pitt the win there. Pitt has been. Big yawn. Pitt has been a weird team in the ACC where they're competitive, they get ranked, they win games, but then they just fizzle out and they don't end up, being any good. But they blah blah blah. You know what I'm trying to say with Pitt? They've been in the top 25 pretty consistently. They've been putting together a lot of winning seasons, but they just haven't been super good. I'll take UCF there. In UCF's home stadium, I'll take TCU. I'll take Houston, and then I'll take Oklahoma State, and I'll take BYU. I feel like those are pretty obvious answers. It's not a good start to the season for UCF. I don't think it gets much better. I'm going to give Baylor the win over UCF. I'm going to give ASU the win. I'll give UCF the win at home to Iowa State, but a loss to Colorado and a loss to Kansas. So they go 3-9, one conference win. It's to the Cyclones in UCF's home stadium, but it's not a good season. It's probably the season where this head coach takes his leave. Unless he's a new head coach. Actually, I don't know. Is he a new head coach already? I know his name is Scott Frost. Um, so when did he get? He previously coached at UCF 2016 to 2017, and I'm what this AI thing sucks. This is why I don't use AI. I don't know. Oh no, he returned for his second stint in 2024. So it's the same guy. He had a lot of success. He had a lot of success, right? In the oh my goodness, guys, let's just take a quick moment to let's just take a quick second to soak in this Gabby Moreno homer. That was a 10 pitch at bat and he hit it over the wall. Anyways, like I was saying, I think this head coach, he had a lot of success with UCF, and those were good football teams regardless of the competition they played. He put together great football teams, but he hasn't been able to do that at UCF in recent time. They just haven't been able to find that level, and I don't know if this is the season. No, I do know it's not this season. I don't have any expectation for UCF. Let's do Cincinnati next. Cincinnati's a weird team. We'll definitely give them 3 wins here. In this game right here, Kansas State versus Cincinnati will probably be closer than people expect, but I'm going to give it to Kansas State. Now, a lot of people, just every time I see Big 12 coach rankings, it's like Everybody hates the head coach that was hired, Colin Klein or whatever. Everybody says he's the worst. I'm like, y'all, give the dude a chance to breathe. I mean, like, I get having him at last place as a new hire, but it's every single poll has him at 16. I'm like, goodness gracious. Like, he's got a point to prove. And who's to say that he doesn't? Now, Kansas State in the recent couple years has been a pretty dang good football program. I think last year they were bowl game eligible, but just barely. But that was off of like they had a horrible start to the season with a much more talented roster. They should not have been as bad as they were. They had much better players. I expect them to bring in the same amount of I expect them to bring in the same amount of talent to the same level of Kansas State football that Kansas State has had. Can they put it together? I would assume so, more than they did last year. You know, you open up the season with a close loss to Iowa State in another country. And then the North Dakota game happened where you barely squeaked it out. And then the Army game happened. And the Army game was really bad. That was bad for them. But then as the season went on, they kind of started to play a little bit better. You know, like they nearly beat Utah in a crazy game. Utah was a damn good football team. So I'm not completely counting Kansas State out. Cincinnati, however, I am counting them out because everybody thought Brennan Sorsby was the best quarterback in the transfer portal. No, he wasn't. Sam Levitt was. Don't even trip. Brandon Sorsby was nowhere near the level as Sam Levitt. I don't even want to. No one even tried to debate me on that. Brendan Sorsby, he did, bro, like the Nebraska game, he threw a horrible game losing interception. It was a terrible pass. His team wasn't even that remotely good. They had their best win was over a ranked Iowa State team who finished nowhere near the top 25. And Cincinnati got ranked and went into the what's it, game day game against Utah, and they got waxed. They got absolutely waxed. And they ended up finishing like a 5-loss team. There was no reason for the hype around Cincinnati. There was no reason for the hype around Brendan Sorsby. And I'm glad that he decided to gamble his life away because he would have upset more Texas Tech fans. He would have upset people. And yeah, I just never understood the hype behind him. I didn't really think he was that good ever. And ultimately, um ultimately, you lose that. He's not that good. You lose it. And who did you replace it with? You didn't really replace it with anybody. That's the problem. I don't see Cincinnati being very good. So loss, 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 loss. I'll give them the win over Iowa State in Colorado, but lost to BYU. Lost to BYU. Unfortunately for Cincinnati, if we're gonna cut him some slack, you know, U of A, Texas Tech, Utah, Houston, BYU are all teams that are in the top 25 or if not very close to it. Um I don't know actually, is Houston in the top 25? I feel like they should be, but if they're not, they're probably extremely close to it. Houston, yeah, Houston's number 23 because they're returning a crap ton of production, and U of A is basically like number 29. They're like right outside of the top 25. Um, so yeah, I mean Cincinnati, I don't see it being any good. Colorado, oh, at Georgia Tech, I'll give them the win over Northwestern, because well, that's probably the likely result. And on top of that, I did that in my Big Ten video. Oh, I guess I did my Big Ten and my SEC. So I just got to do this one, and then I can just pretty much edit the other two videos, and we're donezo there. But Colorado at Baylor, no, no, no. I'm gonna give Kansas State the win. No, no. Yeah, the tough schedule again at Georgia Tech. That's a fun. That's definitely a fun little non-conference game that they set up there. But I like the Georgia Tech head coach. I think he's really helped their program out a lot because Georgia Tech has been awful in recent years up until like these past two. He loses Haynes King, but I'm sure he's going to find a better, like he's going to find a solution for his team. And because he's had some pretty significant success since his time there. But Colorado, on the other hand, Deion Sanders, I like personally was kind of carried by like Shador and Travis Hunter. He had one good season, um, and it was with Travis Hunter and Shador, and Travis won the Heisman. Once those two disappeared, like he wasn't able to bring in that level of talent that was able to like perform. And I think, yeah, I think I don't think they're going to improve very much. And it might be the end of his time at Colorado. They also just have a damn difficult schedule. I mean, Baylor, don't sleep on them. DJ Lagway, and that head coach is in the hot seat, but he's a Big 12 champ. You know, he's put together good football teams time and time again. It's just recently they haven't been able to reach that level. But now you bring in a quarterback like DJ Lagway who could potentially bring that crazy offensive spike back. And then now you got Texas Tech. Obviously, we know about them. Utah is a very, very good football team. You lose Kyle Whittingham, but you build in your own program, which is something that I really like. They hired in their own program that keeps an essence of culture, and I feel like it's also an opportunity for whoever the coach is to build like culture in the fan base and like prove himself. I think regardless of whether his time there works or not, he's got a good football team and a good bunch right now to where they're going to be successful at the very least in this season. They're going to be successful playing with a coach they played with last year for majority of the Utah players. Oklahoma State talked about them. Houston is returning a crap ton of production. Yeah, Houston, in my opinion, was a little overrated last season. They had a ridiculously easy schedule and they were losing to teams like West Virginia. And yeah, I mean, I think they kind of just snuck out a 3-loss record. They did beat LSU in the postseason, but that was um, also with a different quarterback. But that quarterback was pretty good, but still, just not the starters for LSU. But yeah, anyways, if we're gonna talk about other teams, I should predict them. Iowa State, I'm low key like I think I picked it in the last video. We can just kind of go down the list here and pick everything. Like I'm honestly tempted. I literally will. I'm gonna pick Bowling Green. Like I have seen what Bowling Green is capable of. They have taken whenever they have a non-conference Power 4 opponent, they take every single shot they have. There was a year, I don't remember what year it was, they nearly beat a ranked Texas A&M, and they nearly beat a ranked Penn State team, and that Penn State team was actually really damn good. I don't think it was this most recent season. I think it was the season before. Um, but I can't quite remember. So Iowa State, I think they will lose to Bowling Green. They got hit hard, unfortunately for them. Matt Campbell took his leave. He found success at Iowa State, but it just wasn't like enough success. And then he just packed his bags and took all the talent that he brought in with him, and kind of just left Iowa State empty-handed, which really sucks. I mean, Iowa State took 2 trips to the Big 12 championship under Matt Campbell, and then just he wasn't able to put it together in either of them. And 2024 was a bad one. Got absolutely destroyed, and unfortunately, just yeah. I mean, like I don't really have anything else to say about Iowa State, and it kind of sucks because they were a fun team to see in the rankings, but their time is over. Another team that was fun to see in the rankings was Kansas, but I think Kansas is going to move on from their head coach. This one's in London versus ASU. I'm going to give it to ASU, but it is in London, so it might be a bit closer. I'll give them the win over Middle Tennessee. I'm not giving them the win over Kansas State. They haven't beaten Kansas State in what? It's been like almost 2 decades. Win, win, a win, and a win. Honestly, I'll give them the win over Baylor. I'll give them like some weird win over Baylor. Just so they're not like 3-9. I don't think they'll be completely awful, but they're going to be pretty bad. And, if they didn't have Missouri, they'd be 5-7, but I think they can pick up some conference wins. I think they'll be all right, but they had their seasons a couple seasons ago, especially in 2024. That was a Kansas team that could have won the Big 12, but they just kept on fumbling games away. They were blowing every game they had in the first half of the season, and then they started winning every single game once it was pretty much too little too late. And then they lost to Baylor, which didn't even let them go bowl game eligible. They literally were tearing top ranked teams down and they were beating them. And they weren't even a bowl game eligible team. That's because they had every opportunity in the world to win those games and they just blew it every single time. And I feel like the momentum is leaving Kansas. I think it's over. I don't think this season will be any better than last season, and last season wasn't particularly good anyways. Baylor at Auburn, already picked that in the SEC video, but Auburn takes the L, or takes the W, takes two L's and makes a W. And yeah, what was I going to say? I don't remember what I was going to say. Auburn, I think they'll be a bit of a sleeper. I already talked about. I don't need to talk about Auburn in this video. I talk about them in the next video. Baylor, I like the transfer, getting DJ Lagway. I feel like that almost to me put some faith in the not just the head coach but the team and the fan base, because it's like you lose Sawyer Robertson, who people were saying was a Heisman contender, and this offense was going to be so loaded. People were picking Baylor for the Big 12 championship left and right, and they did not live up to that at all. And it almost felt like the breath left them, and it might have been the end of the time for this head coach. But then you pick up DJ Lagway, and it's like, hold on. DJ Lagway is a hyped quarterback. Was at Florida, still has a lot of potential. At ASU, though, I don't see that happening. But here's the thing about this one is I do think Baylor will have a pretty crazy offense, like a old-fashioned Big 12 offense. I think this one's just going to be an all-out duel, just like it was last year. But last year it went TCU's way at TCU. I'm going to pick Baylor. I'm gonna pick Baylor in this one. At this point, they're 4-2 with this win. Would have been 3-3, and that's a big upset. TBH. Before they turn around and drop one to Kansas, they rip off two straight before hitting doom and despair. At this point, they're 6-3, three losses. I don't see them picking up a win at all there. Three losses. And yeah, that's just a horrible, horrible end to the year, like in terms of the difficulty. But yeah, a Baylor, I think their head coach is a good head coach. I think it might be I think it might be time to not move, like Baylor needs to move on from him. He needs to move on from Baylor. He needs to go to a different program and start something new. I think he's just been at Baylor for too long. It's time for something new. And this will be the season that does it. TCU versus North Carolina. We'll do TCU next. I'm going to give them the win in the whatever country it's being played in. I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to give TCU the win there. Then a bye week. Wow. Oh, because that's week 1. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, this is week 0, technically. Win over UCF versus BYU. I'm going to give them... BYU is going to be good. They've been very consistently good. They've got a great head coach. Probably the best coach in the Big 12 if it isn't Kenny Dillingham. And no, it's not the Texas Tech head coach. He just opens his pockets, respectfully. They got killed in the college football playoff. But, Do I really see? Yeah, I do. I do see TCU winning this. TCU gets a great start to the year, and then they get upset by Baylor. But at this point, they're 7-1. I can tell you I definitely want to predict these two, which gives us a 3-loss record, but I think 3 losses is the way to go. I think 3 losses is the way to go, and I'm set in stone on Baylor winning this game. I'll give them 2 wins here. I'll give them the win on the road against U of A, and I'll give them the win over Kansas State before a loss at home to TCU. Or no, what if I went boom boom like that? I'll give TCU the win over Utah and then finish off the year against Texas Tech in a rivalry, but it's at Texas Tech, so I will give Texas Tech the win there. But yeah, I think giving U of A the win in their home stadium feels necessary. Their defense is going to be good, and TCU is probably particularly going to, per usual, lie on the offensive side of things. And turnovers could be a huge factor in this. U of A made a living off of turnovers last season. I don't see why that would change, especially returning 70% of, not 70. That's Ohio State who's returning 70, I'm pretty sure. But they're still returning, I think it's like 58% of their production from last season. And a lot of that is on the defensive side of things. So why wouldn't you still have that turnover margin? You should. So yeah, I'll give U of A the win, but then I'll give them the win over Utah. And in a juggernaut of a schedule, for the Big 12 standards, playing a lot of the top dogs, TCU is a dark horse and a problem causer the whole time. Kansas State, we'll do Kansas State next. Win, 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 but don't even blink on Washington State. I just talked about Washington State in another video, and actually, Washington State, dude, awful, awful non conference. They have to play Washington, Kansas State, and U of A. That's just diabolical. The easiest one of that's probably Kansas State, which Kansas State will still be pretty good. Right now, Kansas State is 7-1 on this. I'm not going to give them the win against Houston. I'm not going to give them a win at ASU. But at this point, Kansas State's 5-1 going into the ASU game. Pretty hyped up game there. Kansas State's gaining some momentum. Kansas State takes a loss, but then they win. And then they win. Yeah, they win and then they win. But they lose to U of A in Kansas State's home stadium. So Kansas State 8-4. I feel like it is whoa, big stutter. It's gonna be a weird 8-4. It's gonna be a little bit of a weird 8-4. But they, difficulty. What if I click this? It'll show me this strength of schedule so far. They have a 0.472 and going 8-4 is a 0.472, but at the same time, you can't really sleep at night because if you're Kansas State, like you can't relax because you have to play teams like Washington State, Tulane, and then it just keeps going, and you enter like the only breaks you really get would be a bye week, Kansas, and maybe in Colorado, and then finish off the year against a cream puff. But that's at the end of the year. So 8-4 for Kansas State. That might be extremely high for a lot of people's standards, but sometimes 8-4 records can be manufactured based off of the non-conference schedule. And you basically have a fourth non-conference game in Iowa State. I just don't think Iowa State's going to be anything in particular. And arguably a fifth one against Kansas because Kansas hasn't been able to beat Kansas State, and that trend isn't going to break unless Kansas State's 1-10 and Kansas is like 9-3. Like, that's just not going to change. Oklahoma State will do them next. Oregon beats them. That's not really a question. But they start off 2-1. They show some fight in the Oregon game for some moments. They beat West Virginia on the road. They beat UCF at this point. They're a one-loss team, but you got to hit the road and play Houston, unfortunately, and they take the L. But then they rip off 2 before losing there. But they beat Kansas at the end of the year, so their strength of schedule is probably going to be easier. Oh, it's technically a 0.5. So I bet you it's based off of like I don't know how they're pulling this strength of schedule, if they're pulling it off of the preseason top 25 rankings or whatever, but I can assume that Oklahoma State is their strength of schedule is being extremely slanted by that Oregon game. Like that Oregon game is probably um like making their strength of schedule a lot more. Just one team could be more than the three teams Kansas State played combined. So that's probably skewing it a lot. There's a lot of easy games on this Oklahoma State. Tulsa, Murray State, UCF, Colorado, Kansas, like so yeah. Oklahoma State, though, in their first season under this new head coach, they go 7-5. If you're an Oklahoma State fan, you're completely content because you're not getting the worst beatdowns of all time after being in the Big 12 championship against Texas a couple years ago and just being completely awful, falling an inch short of a Big 12 championship and a college football playoff appearance. Falling an inch short to drop to 3-9 in the next couple years, a 7-5 record is a trend in the right direction. You're completely content if you are an Oklahoma State fan with that. Let's do U of A next. U of A win, but second game of the year, BYU, go figure, loss. Win, I'll give Utah the win on the road, Texas Tech a win there, and we have two games that I'm going to save. Washington State is an underrated football team. At this point, Washington State would have played if once the Big 10 videos there. I already know what happens, so whatever. At this point, we know Washington State is not a bad football team because of how well they will play Washington, at least from what I am predicting. They lose on the road against Kansas State in another close game, I can only assume. I don't know who Washington State will play after that, but then they finally get one of these games at home. And I really feel like Washington State will win this. I don't want you guys to call me biased at all. I just something tells me when I see this matchup that Washington State will win this game. It's an old Pac-12 matchup that they made in non-conference. Washington State was underrated last season. Nearly upset Ole Miss. Nearly upset Virginia. Like 3-point loss at Ole Miss. 2-point loss against Virginia. I think they carry a lot of that team and a lot of that energy into this upcoming season. They're in a new conference and an opportunity to succeed in a new conference. Technically not a new conference, the same one, just new people. An opportunity to get back into the limelight. I feel like this one's just going to be a classic. Like this is just one of those games that it ends up being an all-time classic. I think it's going to be great. I think Washington State's going to win it. And then final game of the year, ASU versus U of A. The only reason I'm relatively tempted to pick ASU in this game is because in the past 3 territorial cups, the home team hasn't won. ASU got clobbered by U of A in 23. In 24, ASU clobbered U of A. In 25, U of A won against ASU because ASU turned the ball over 5 times. The last time a team won in their home stadium was U of A in 2022, and they won by 3 points. And that was a very bad ASU team. They won by 3 points, and ASU also had 5 turnovers in that game to U of A's like 2, if even 2. I feel like the trend is that the road team plays extremely well in the home team stadium, and the home team tends to play pretty bad. ASU does have some extreme strong points. You are just the biggest problem for ASU is going to be their little mixture that they have in a question at the quarterback position. How's the quarterback going to play? And the O-line. The O-line is completely new and not particularly good at holding up. U of A's got a good defense. A lot of teams have good defenses and good pass rushes. Are they going to be able to protect the quarterback? Is that going to spell doom for ASU? Because if you fix that, if the O-line can play, ASU is going to be one of like a Big 12 contender. every other position is extremely good. Like especially the linebacker position. Every other position is extremely good. It's just that horrible offensive line, and you don't even know if the quarterback will be good. That is the only questions I have for ASU. So with that being said, I'm going to give the win to U of A. I think it'll be a good game, but I'm going to give the win to U of A in their home stadium. And U of A goes 8-4. It's about the same as last season. And I just don't really think I do think U of A will be good, but I mean again, you're playing BYU, Texas Tech, Utah. Like those are three games. Those are three of the best teams in the Big 12. And then the Washington State loss is just a battle of wits in a crazy game. We'll do ASU next. ASU, unfortunately for them, I've pretty much selected all their wins already. I'm going to give them the win over Hawaii, even though Hawaii could be your group of 5 team that gets in. I'm going to give ASU the win only because it's in their home stadium, and they've been very, very good in recent years. One of the best teams in recent years in their home win percentage. But on the road against Texas A&M, not happening. I just don't see that happening. On the road against Texas Tech, not happening. On the road against BYU, not happening. ASU 8-4, 8-4. Actually has a better record than U of A going into this game, but U of A gets the win and ultimately has a better record than ASU, or a better conference, like they're above them. I think ASU has a lot of potential, but same stuff that I just said in the last one. ASU's got question marks at the offensive line and at the O line. That's a horrible mixture. That could completely ruin a season. Everybody else can play as good as they want, but if they're constantly getting back to the quarterback and the quarterback is not able to play very good football, then I just think that's a mixture for doom. We're going to do Houston next. Houston, I like them. I think they're going to be good. And they have a very easy schedule in terms of they're number 23. They're expected to be good. I'm going to say they go 10-2 with their 2 losses being their 2 difficult road games. They're 2 extremely difficult road games, but when it really comes down to it, their strength of schedule is probably one of the easiest in the Big 12. It's technically a .42. How in the world is that possible? So you're telling me when we look over here, the BYU BYU has a quote unquote easier schedule when BYU has to play U of A, Notre Dame, ASU, and Utah and TCU. Excuse me? What is you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Houston, one of the easiest schedules in the Big 12. I guess Kansas State would be a more difficult team. It just won't be realized at that point. And Houston, it'll probably be a closer game, but it's just one that Houston manages to play very well in. And ultimately, I think Houston going 10-2 is reasonable. I think they're going to be good. I just don't see them going more than 10-2. I don't see them being enough to go on the road to Texas Tech 3rd game of the year and win. I don't see that happening. We'll do Texas Tech next. Why not? Texas Tech, Oregon State actually has something cooking. The Malik Murphy quarterback was actually beat out by somebody who's been breaking records and putting up super good numbers. Beat him out for the starting position. So I'll give their one loss to the Oregon State Beavers. Nope, I've made that joke too much. But seriously, I mean, Texas Tech quarterback probably returns around week 7 or maybe during the bye week or something. Wilhelm and Torres ACL, I'm pretty sure it was halfway through the year. He should be around the same time. But even then, I'm sure Texas Tech is going to find a lot of success in the Big 12, regardless of their quarterback situation or not. I think they're going to find a lot of success anyways. They are the best at every position except for quarterback. I mean, and that is a fact. I don't know what their preseason ranks, but Texas Tech is a good-ass football team. BYU, at Colorado State will be fun. That'll be a very interesting game. You see, here's the thing about BYU, all right? Here's the thing about BYU. They have a very difficult schedule to make it to the Big 12 championship. BYU has recently been a winner in the Holy War. Last year, I think Utah was the better team than BYU, but it was at BYU, and BYU just managed to win. I think I'm going to give the win to Utah this year. I'm going to give the win to Utah, which would put BYU out of the race, but also in the middle of the year, I'm going to give them the win over Notre Dame. That might be a big shocker to a lot of people, but when you look at Notre Dame's schedule, um, where can I just find like where's the what are they even called when they're not in a conference? Like this is the conference thing. Let's just go to all. Go to all and try to find Notre Dame. When you look at Notre Dame's schedule, you got BYU and Miami. That's it. Like that's entirely it. And it's on the road against BYU too. Now, I do think Notre Dame has a team that's like championship worthy. Oh, and SMU. But I do think they have a team that's like championship potential. But I don't know, I feel like playing just like sleepwalking through your schedule and then the BYU game comes around, which BYU has been, playing actual opponents. I mean, like these are the worst of the worst. Like Wisconsin's going to be ass. Michigan State. I already had some of these games predicted in the Big Ten video, so I'm just going to like pick them. But actually, let's just do Notre Dame in general. Notre Dame, I see them winning all these games. But when we get down to these ones, I see them beating SMU in their home stadium. But this one, a rematch of the game that knocked Notre Dame out last year, Miami ended up going to the national championship. I think that Notre Dame wins it this year. I do think that Miami is going to be right back where they were last season, and not like in the national championship game, but like as a top dog in the ACC and a really big problem and a good contender. But this time it's at Notre Dame, and I think they're going to be just slightly worse than Notre Dame this year. But I do think Miami will be a college football playoff team. But I think Notre Dame's in. I just don't see them going undefeated, and especially on the road against BYU, that's going to be a crazy game. So BYU is out of the Big 12 championship, but probably in the college football playoff. Probably. You'd assume so. Technically, they're under Houston in the conference, but that win over Notre Dame is going to speak a lot of numbers to the voters and stuff. And even then, their losses are to good teams. And the last team in the Big 10 or Big 12 that I've been saving is Utah. Even though they're pretty much already all the way picked, I think Utah is going to make it to the Big 12 championship. And even though Texas Tech is undefeated, I think Utah is our Big 12 championship winner. They were extremely good last year. They unfortunately just started turning the ball over against Texas Tech in a ball game that was really, really close. I think they have improved off of last season. I think they will improve off of last season, and they're probably going to be one of the better teams. What the heck? They're probably going to be one of the better teams in the Big 12 by a long shot. The top 4 teams that if I would go in chronological order, I would say number 1 Utah, number 2 BYU, number 3 Texas Tech. Now, earlier I was saying like Texas Tech checks all the boxes. Quarterback is still going to be a problem of a position. And when it comes down to it, you got to have a quarterback. If Will Hammond comes back and ends up like proving that he's QB1 and Texas Tech takes off, so be it. But there's also potential that that the quarterback remains a problem throughout the year. Honestly, everybody's talking about Bear Morton. I think he was a problem for them too. Like, I just think he wasn't fitting that role. They need a quarterback. They tried to go with Brendan Sorsby. Turns out he's a gambling addict. And I think they'll just be a Texas Tech team that we saw last year, which isn't going to be able to be enough to take down top teams in like the college football playoff. I just think the thing is with them last season is that there wasn't another college football playoff contending team in the Big 12. I think they were the best option. Like BYU probably would have gotten obliterated. Utah would have maybe scored some points, but their defense would have gotten obliterated. And yeah, that's all I really see from that. But so number one, I would say Utah. Number two, I'd say BYU. They lose the head-to-head, but BYU's got big wins. Texas Tech takes an L. Are they in the college football playoff? Are they not? That'll be one of the big questions. And then number four, I would say, is TCU, not Houston. Houston's good, but TCU, on the other hand, beat BYU. Pretty much is the loss that knocks them, not really, but like puts them out of the Big 12 championship consideration. And TCU is a good team. They also are Utah's only loss. TCU is one of the top dogs. They lose to Texas Tech. They're number 4. Number 5 is Houston. Number 6 would be U of A. Number 7 would be ASU. Number 8 Kansas State, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of that actual skill of the teams. So yeah, that's what I think of the Big 12. I think Utah is going to be our Big 12 champs. I think they'll be our Big 12 champs of the year. And I think BYU will be in the college football playoff. And Texas Tech will probably be in the college football playoff, but probably as like the 10. Probably as like the 10 or something like that. Their strength of schedule would be 0.431. Utah's strength of schedule would be, I clicked the wrong button. Utah's strength of schedule is technically like worse, and it is a very, very easy schedule with all considered. 3 hard games: Houston, BYU, U of A, and TCU. 4 hard games. 2 of those are at home. The 2 quote unquote hardest ones are at home. You only lose 1 out of 4, but that's it. Everything else outside of that is a cakewalk. At least in terms of Utah, like in their skill level. So they have one of the easiest strength of schedules, but they're the Big 12 winners. Not only did they have 4 games and they win 3 of them, 4 difficult games and they win 3 of them, but you also have what was I going to say? The win over Texas Tech, which makes it 5. So you're 4 for 5 against the good teams. Regardless of your strength of schedule, you've proven it. Houston has a .42, 424. So it's up there with teams like BYU and stuff in terms of strength of schedule, but it's a little phony baloney. It's a little phony baloney. 2 difficult games at Texas Tech, at Utah, and then I don't know why their strength of schedule is technically harder. I don't know what makes it harder, but at Kansas State would be the 3rd hardest game. Other than that, it's cakewalks. Like, other than that, it's a bunch of easy teams. I'm not sure why theirs is considered harder than Utah's. I couldn't even tell you. What does SOV mean? I'm freaking out right now, dude. Freaking out. But yeah, and then BYU is in because, or should be in. Maybe that would be more of a talking point, but should be in. And with multiple good wins, you have win over U of A, lost to TCU, but win over Notre Dame, win over ASU. Actually, pretty much that win over Notre Dame is the only thing like helping them here. They don't really have many like good teams that they've beat. You lose to TCU. Ooh, maybe Notre Dame, maybe BYU isn't quite in. Maybe BYU isn't quite in, but their strength of schedule, I don't get it, bro. But okay, that'll be maybe once we get through all of that, I'll come back to that and see what I think if BYU gets in or not, or if they get skipped. But that is my Big 12 predictions. I've got Utah winning the Big 12. And let me know what you guys think of your Big 12 predictions in the comments. Like and subscribe, it up a comment always helps. That's all from me. Adios.